So I'm sure now you all realize why all Indian languages are similar. So now we have Dr. Girija and Mukundan. Dr. Girija has been a practicing Ayurvedic Vaidya. She has been practicing for over 30 years. She, of course, started as a sociologist with an MPhil from JNU, then realized that she can be of much greater use to our society by studying Ayurveda. So she became a Ayurvedic Vaidya, studying at the Chennai Venkatramana Ayurveda Vidyalaya. Shri Mukundan is an IIT graduate turned industrial engineer in US, then turned a yoga teacher, now a practitioner of Ayurveda. So there is a hospital in Injambakam, Sanjeevani Vaidyashala, and they are also involved in many social projects concerning Ayurveda. They will talk about it, called the Jeevani program, where in schools some basic supplements are given to children to strengthen their health and prevent them from getting into any problems. So I invite them to start.
Namaste. I must say I am a little hesitant because of all the brilliant lectures which have gone before me, and they're set fairly high standards to keep up. But mine is a mandate given to me by my friend M.D. Srinivas is fairly clear, to talk about a fairly mundane but a very pertinent issue today, that of healthcare in India. So this, I believe the book is given, MD? I believe it's in your kit, a book, Ayurveda for Revitalizing Healthcare in India. And what I'm going to present, the first part is about the crisis in healthcare in India today. There is a major and serious crisis, and that's what I'm going to present you through these slides. Please follow the slides. If they're all self-evident, I will pause enough for you to read through, or I'll help you get through the slide. The hoary history of Ayurveda. It has a long history going back to the Atharva Veda. Charakan Sushruta, Dr. Ram Manohar already has given a very good lecture on the history of Ayurveda. Charakan Sushruta compiled by the first millennium BC and Vagbhata by the 6th century CE. By the 5th century CE, India had a well-established public health system. In fact, even Charaka Samhita, in the Sutrasthana, there is a very clear description of a hospital, what it takes to build a hospital, what the hospital contains, even the structure, the materials and all that go into building the hospital. By the 5th century CE, India had a well-established public health system, and the Chinese pilgrim Fahian, who was here in the 5th century, in Pataliputra, we'll see the quotation next. Better, I think, better. Hello? Okay. 15 known important works during between 500 and 1000 CE, and about 100 more major works during the next 500 years. Continuous activity during this period. During the medieval period also, Ayurvedic system continued to flourish. European observers, 16th and 17th century, noted vast botanical knowledge and other medical practices, surgery, plastic surgery, inoculation, etc. This also has been told to us by Dr. Ram Manohar in his lecture. Two observers, namely Garcia de Horta and Van Reed, and whose Hortus Malabaricus became very famous in Europe and influenced subsequent development of botanical knowledge there. Fahian, in the 5th century, he says in Pataliputra, The cities and towns of this country, Magadha, are the greatest of all the Middle Kingdom. Middle Kingdom, I think, is the name of India for the Chinese. The inhabitants are rich and prosperous and vie with one another in the practice of benevolence and righteousness. The heads of the Vaisya families in them established in the cities houses for dispensing charity and medicine. All the poor and destitute in the country, orphans, widows, childless men, maimed people and cripples, and all who are deceased go to these houses and are provided with every kind of. The idea is this entire thing is free and it is the expenses are borne by the society. This once again, in the 18th century, we have detailed account of the practice of inoculation against smallpox of the whole world. If you have seen the wonderful book by Sri Dharampal on the Indian science and technology in the 18th century, he describes this in detail, the practice of inoculation against smallpox in Bengal, noted by the governor of Bengal in 1767. On the efficacy of this practice, he says, it is next to a miracle to hear that 1 in a million miscarries under it. In 1794, the Gentleman's Magazine in London published an account of plastic surgery done by a potter near Pune. This procedure also is described in the Chushi Samhita and the Sutrasthana, Nasika Sandhana, to fix the nose of a soldier. And Dharampalji says this practice must have been widespread, seems to be widespread in India. A more detailed account was published by J.C. Carbew in London. Such a widespread healthcare system was supported by the society in pre-British India. Revenue account, now we come to 2,000 localities nearby Chengalpattu district region surrounding Chennai. In the 1760s show that each locality allocated nearly 1% of its gross produce apart from Maniam. Maniam is the revenue of a portion of cultivated lands given to the beneficiary for local doctors or Vaidyam. All the functionaries of the village got these Maniams allocations from the gross produce. And the decline of Ayurveda. Now, during the British rule, there is definitely a decline. This is what we are talking about here. In 1794, William Jones declared that there was no evidence of any indigenous medical science. William Jones is very famous as the father of Indology in India, and he takes, I think, a rather pessimistic note at that time. And, I mean, the quotations are there in the book, full quotations there. After conquering an area, the British policy was to put an end to all support provided to medical services and education both at the state level and village level. Both are completely supported. We saw how the medical services were supported by the society by giving shares from the gross produce. Without support from public funds, Ayurvedic practice came under great stress but continued to serve the society. The modern Western medicine, which was actively promoted by the state, was accessible only to the elite. Even then, Ayurveda survived by popular support and social patronage. Important commentaries and new texts continued to be produced even in this period. Even in the period of extreme stress, Indians were active in this medical field. Now we come to independence movement. First half of the 20th century, under the great leadership of Mahatma Gandhi ji, saw a revival of Ayurveda all over the country. Not only Ayurveda, many areas. In annual sessions of 1918 and 20, the Indian National Congress passed resolutions supporting Ayurveda and other local systems. In 1921, Government of Madras appointed a committee, we will see the details of the committee later, which recommended the promotion of ISM, is Indian Systems of Medicine, which includes Siddha, Unani and so on. Mahatma Gandhi's speech in London, that also comes a little later, calls for the revival of the ancient medical system. Now, the resurgence. Kottakkal Arya-Vaidashala, Kerala was started in 1902. The Venkatramana Ayurveda College was established in 1905. More than 100 years ago, unfortunately, the college had to close for lack of interest in running it before it completed its centenary. The Banaras Hindu University, established in 1916, had a major focus on the teaching and practice of Ayurveda. The Baidyanath Bhavan was established in 1917, and the Zandu Pharmaceutical Works in 1919. They are still active manufacturing medicines, I believe. Okay, independent movement again. In annual sessions of 1918 and 20, the Indian National Congress passed resolutions calling for the establishment of schools, colleges, hospitals for instruction and treatment in accordance with the indigenous system. We'll see the, I think, latest slide. Nagpur session of 1920 also resolved that there should be an integrated system of medicine. This is the quotation, full quotation, in 1920. Integrated system of medicine research, which should be combination of both our Ayurveda, Unani, Tib, Siddha and modern medicine systems. They went for the integrated approach, choosing the best out of all and thus supporting one system by another to serve mankind to its best. Here we come back to 1921, the committee that I mentioned. The newly elected government of Madras appointed a committee to report on indigenous system of medicine in vogue in the presidency. The report of the committee noted that while there were only about 3,000 practitioners of modern Western medicines, there were more than 21,007 times of indigenous medicine. The presidency had around 600 institutions of MWM, modern Western medicine, which served less than 5% of the population but cost the public exchequer nearly 60 lakhs. The committee recommended it is only through the promotion of the Indian systems of medicine the state can hope to achieve the ideal of bringing medical relief within easy reach of the people, especially in the rural areas. It was also concluded by the committee that Ayurveda is a scientific system which is cheaper, more efficacious and popular than the Western medical system. Continuing the same theme, in a major speech delivered in London during his visit to England for the Round Table Conference in 1931, Mahatma Gandhi outlined his vision of independent India. We give this medical aid not through very expensive method that the Western doctors teach us, but we revive our own ancient treatment. Every village once had its own medical man. He talked similarly about education. Every village had its own school. After 1937, government allocation for Ayurveda and Unani was increased to more than 5% of the health expenditure in some of the Congress-ruled provinces. At the time of independence, there were 28 colleges teaching Ayurveda, compared to 25 colleges teaching medicine, modern Western medicine. The latter had many more students, however, than the former, 1 to 2 nearly, ratio more than twice. State of healthcare at the time of independence. At the time of independence, due to the extraordinary stress of the British rule, the healthcare scenario was truly dismal. Life expectancy at birth was only 32 years. Infant mortality rate, IMR, infant mortality is child dying within a year of birth, was 148 per 1,000 live births. England was about 30. Look at that, 1 to 5 nearly. Maternal mortality rate, MMR, women dying due to pregnancy or childbirth related causes were 20 per 1,000. This is an extraordinarily high figure because these days it's computed to 100,000 base, and it works out to, if you scale it up linearly, 2,000. Now it's about 174 per 100,000. Number of beds, 0.24 per 1,000, USA 10.5, England 7, order of magnitude higher. Annual mortality from malaria, 1 million at the time of independence. India considered largest reservoir of epidemic diseases, situation very similar in most of Asia and Africa, which are also emerging from colonial rule. You can imagine the situation. Current health statistics, we have done a lot better, but as I'm going to show you, we are not done good enough to meet the health needs of our people. India's current health indicators are worse than the world average. In 2016-17, life expectancy 68.8, world average is 72. Neonatal mortality is 24 per 1,000, world average is 18. Infant mortality rate is 39 per 1,000, world average is 29. Under 5 mortality 39, world average 39. Only maternal mortality is marginally better, 174 per 100,000, world average 216. Yet, all the above indicators are much worse than the prevailing health indicators in Europe, China, and most of the Asian countries. Some graphs here.
Why is it less?
Sorry?
Maternal mortality.
Maybe there are a lot of countries, African countries also included. Some of them may be doing worse than us. So it's about, we've seen under 5 mortality 39, and yet all the above indicators are much worse than the prevailing health indicators, Europe, China, and most of the Asian countries. Please, in the graphs, please follow China, because China and we had the same beginning. We started in 1947, China in 1949 after the revolution, and they made a commitment to do better. So look at that, 39 and China is 8. This is infant mortality rate. World, the rest of the figures. Neonatal mortality, India is 24, 2017 figure, China is 5. China is like an advanced European country almost. Maternal mortality, MMR, India is 174, China is 27. Government policy, reasons for the poor health indicators, highly inadequate government spending. We are going to show some statistics on this also. Highly inadequate government spending on health. This has been discussed all the time, that government is not spending enough. Complete neglect of Indian systems. All the health policies of the last 70 years, including 2017 National Health Policy, have not initiated any steps to change the above distortion. Government expenditure on health in India is far below world average. In 2016, as per WHO estimates, The government expenditure on health in India is 0.9% of GDP. World average is 3.4%. That is really much higher. Government expenditure on health in India is 25.4% of the total expenditure on health. World average is 52.2. What this means, we'll see later. The government is spending so little. Government expenditure on health per capita is $15.9. World average is $589.8. That is out-of-pocket expenses. That is what we pay. The people pay in India 65% of the total health expenditure. That is why, because the government is spending so little, there is a very heavy burden of healthcare expenditure on the people. Particularly, this affects the poor very badly. World average is 33.1% only. These are some graphs. Look at China. 2016, 2.9% of GDP. India is 0.9. They've done it in a very short time. Government has spent percent of total expenditure on health. Government expenditure in India 25.4, 2016. China is 58, somewhere else. Per capita government expenditure in health, we saw the figure 15.9 India. China is $231.1. Out of pocket, China is 35.9. India is high, 65.2 there. Okay. The consequence of all this, public health is badly affected, impoverished, poor health indicators, we saw that. Primary care is neglected. Primary care has to be the fundamental of a good, healthy society, particularly because it affects the poor very much. Heavy out-of-pocket expenditure, huge burden of 70%, that also we saw on the people. National health policy. Government has taken note of these things. It's not that they are not aware, but nothing has been done. That is, National Health Policy 2002 had envisaged increasing the government health expenditure from 0.9% to 2% of GDP by 2025. But even in 2016, it remains at 0.9% only. After all, there's 14 years of the policy. In March 2017, again, Government of India announced a new National Policy of Health 2017, which proposes to increase health expenditure by government as a percent of GDP from the existing 1.515 to 2.5 by 2025. Now they've gone a little further. Still, there is no time bound. Actually, they have not given any concrete action plan as to how these resources are to be put in use, what kind of institution will take up the burden, and so on. NHP 2017 also continues the total neglect of Ayurveda, although the policy states that policy envisages optimum use of existing manpower infrastructure as available in the health sector. Optimum use means you see what the manpower available is. Ayurveda and modern Western medicine, how they compare. 10.4 lakh MWM practitioners and 4.4 lakh Ayurveda practitioners, about 1 to 2.5 from Ayurveda to modern Western medicine. Colleges 499, 393, about 70,000 UG students studying modern Western medicine as opposed to 25,000, that is nearly 1 to 3 ratio. The figures for both the systems were very much closer even in 2001. Now there's a little gap in 2018. Some numbers again, same numbers. UG colleges, UG students, same numbers, 25,000, 70,000. Okay. This is the next part of the argument, that the government has not spent enough money on the Ayush. Ayush means Ayurveda, Yoga, Unani, Siddha and Homeopathy are put together in one department now called the Ayush department. They used to be called ISM, Indian System of Medicine earlier. In all the 5-year plans since 1950, allocation for ISM Ayush is 1.5 to 3.5% of the total outlay for health. That means the rest 97% nearly is going to the modern Western medicine. Annual budgetary allocation for Ayush in the last 10 budget is less than 4% of total allocation of health, currently 2.9% for Ayush of the health budget. The total allocation of Ayush is less than even the allocation of one single institution, the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. The central government allocation is only about 1/3 of the total, the rest is borne by the states. The states also, the distribution allocation is similar. These are the numbers: total outlay for health, first plan, total outlay for Ayush, and percentage. It goes maximum up to 3.6, now it's 3.3 in the 12th plan, in the last column, last row, 3.3% of the health outlay is for ISM. Out of that, about half goes to Ayurveda, that about 1.5% will go to Ayurveda. This is the graph, what it looks like, 97%, 3% on the 12th plan, outlay for MWM and ISM. Did I go back or what? No. Budgetary allocation for health, these are the budgets. Budget by budget, come to 2019-20, the budgetary allocation for health is that much in crores. This is Ayush, and that's 2.9%. That's the latest figure we have. Okay, these are the graphs, budgetary allocation for health, 2019-20. This is the percentage allocated to Ayush as a proportion of the health budget. It never crosses the 4%, and at the minimum, it's about 2%. Okay. There is a need for a new health policy. Ayurveda accounts for nearly 1/3 of registered medical practitioners and 1/4 of students, and a large number of local health traditions, in all serving more than 2/3 of the population as per some WHO estimates. And some estimates put it even 3/4 of people are served by Ayurveda or our indigenous systems in some form or the other. But 97% of the state funds are consumed by modern Western medicine, which is highly resource intensive, with high rate of obsolescence of theory in practice and less efficient. This calls for a new policy framework where different systems are treated equitably. The contribution of Ayurveda is large in terms of the people it serves, and yet the allocations are very, very small, meager. Need for a new policy again. Any new policy should raise the first point, government expenditure on health from the current level of less than 1% to at least 3% of GDP over the next 10 years. China, note that, has increased government expenditure on health from 1 to 3% in 15 years, from 2001 to 16. We started in 2002, the new health policy started making these statements, but China has actually done it in 15 years. Second point, increase the allocation for support and development of Ayurveda from the currently estimated 1.5% to at least 30% of the health budgets of both the centers and states. You should go up to that much, only then it will reasonably serve whatever it's already doing, it will do better. There should also be a 5-year plan for developing the much needed infrastructure, etc. in Ayurveda. Ayurveda needs a lot more infrastructure. This now, we spend a couple of slides on what China has done, how it's done it. We saw what it has done. Like Ayurveda, TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, has also had a very hoary ancient tradition of over 2,500 years. It also came under cloud during the period of foreign domination. In the 19th century, acupuncture was banned. In 1921, the Kuomintang government proposed a total ban on TCM. After 1949, TCM became an important part of the national health system. The Chinese constitution, mind you, stipulates that the state develops medical and health services, promotes modern medicine and traditional Chinese medicine, all for the protection of people's health. I think they had some policy called walking on two legs or something like that. State patronage of TCM China, as of 2008, TCM practitioners constituted 10% of medical practitioners as opposed to 30% in India of Ayurvedic practitioners. Even then, around 7% of the state health budget was allowed to TCM as opposed to only about 1.5% here for Ayurveda. Health insurance schemes included TCM. There is a big controversy in India today whether insurance should be given at all to Ayurvedic treatments. On the National Essential Medicine list, more than 1/3 were TCM drugs. TCM was widely available in most MWM hospitals, health centers, health stations and clinics. TCM formed more than 5% of the curriculum of students studying modern Western medicine. This is, I think, a very important thing, but for them to be able to appreciate what the traditional medicine is. So I stop here, and the next half of the talk will be from Dr. Girija about the role Ayurveda already played, the fact can play, a powerful role Ayurveda can play, how and to revitalize our health system. Thank you very much. Namaskar.